Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 26, 29 Eve 1. To be honest, I'm too lazy to think about those questions. I think it's enough for people to just live life as they please. As long as you can live happily, does it matter whether you are human or not? Zhang Yi frankly expressed his inner thoughts. Eve was silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled. That's a pretty good understanding, and I used to comfort myself with that idea. But ultimately, it's just an obsession. Zhang Yi remained vigilant. He stared at Eve, and even though she didn't exude any threat, he could still sense the woman's power. Why did the Sand Raider civilization perish? Was it really because of a civil war? And what you just said. His gaze turned to the horizon, from which he could vaguely see the outline of the artificial star bound by countless chains outside the Tiantong Tower. Was it there that the Sandslayer chose to seal its spirit? He was very familiar with this place, Tianyu Palace. However, it is clear that the Sand Raiders' clumsy imitation of the Ihen race has failed. What exactly happened here? Can you tell me? Eve looked up, her eyes reflecting the complex structure of the Tower of Heaven, and her voice slowly began to unfold. After many years, someone finally came to ask her this question. She would also be willing to chat with a real, intelligent being. The area of the Sky Tower that you see is an isolated space that the Sandstalker civilization carved out before the final war. It is cut off from the outside world, and only the core Mother Core and a few authorized users can come and go. All members of the Sand Raiders have been driven out of this place. This place is only for the mechanical life forms they create and spiritual samples used for experiments. After the Sandslayer civilization sealed itself away and entered the inner world, they did not stop expanding. Fearing the destruction of the era, they began to imitate the Ahen race, attempting to abandon their physical bodies and free their spirits from their shackles. She pointed to the artificial celestial body hanging on the horizon outside the Tiantong Tower. That was imitating the method of the second-generation god, the Ihen race, but the technology of the Sand Raider civilization was limited and could not truly achieve that level. They can only seal their own spirits and do not need to return to the ether to achieve eternity. However, they have not abandoned everything in the inner world, so when they act in the outside world, they need an external terminal. Zhang Yi understood. In other words, they needed a human form like Ling. Eve looked at Zhang Yi, her gaze falling on his bodyguard, Ling, with a hint of emotion in her eyes. A terminal organ that can carry a large number of spirits, traverse the universe, evade cause and effect, and replace flesh and blood. So they began to develop mechanical technology at a frenzy, extracting the consciousness of their fellow citizens and infusing it into mechanical bodies, transforming cities into massive testing grounds, and treating souls as rewritable code. They failed. A slight darkness fell in a certain part of the sky, as if to complement her narration. The spirits of the Sandslayers are not fully compatible with the cold metal. Some go mad, some decay, and some refuse to be awakened. The mechanical matrix that can be used to carry out the load gradually develops errors that are not in the script during that long process. Zhang Yi and the others in the shadows were suddenly shaken. They finally understood why the three guardians, the Heavenly Ring, the Boundless Sphere, and the Death Songstress, had the reactions of living beings. And now I finally understand what the red light hanging down from the artificial star was. That is the spirit of the Sand Raiders civilization. It only completed a structure similar to the Heavenly Palace, achieving self-isolation to avoid being swallowed up by Kagago's epical succession rules, and also to avoid being found by the Druk people. However, due to insufficient technology, they can only exist somewhere between the Songyuan clan and the Ihan clan. Half dead. Is that what you mean? Indeed, throughout history, all intelligent species have pursued eternity, that is, immortality. The survival of a people is the ultimate goal of civilization. Zhang Yi found the information somewhat confusing. The history of a civilization was too long for him to absorb quickly. So, what is your relationship with them? Are they the masters, or are you the masters? Eve smiled slightly and stretched out her hand in one direction. Not far away, a small, ordinary-looking repair machine stopped what it was doing, looked up at Eve, and its optical lens shone with an almost affectionate light. You mean, what happened to the manufactured mechanical life forms? They learned to look after each other, to allocate resources, and to proactively terminate the killing process without being instructed to do so. One day, when the leaders of the Sand Raiders realized this, they were afraid, because they discovered that the tools they themselves had created were beginning to ask, why continue the war? Why can't it stop? And so the war truly began. But the enemy changed. It was no longer their opposing forces, but the mechanical life forms they had created. A faint metallic echo came from the depths of the jungle, the lingering echo of an ancient war. The Sandslayers attempted to terminate all mechanical matrices and erase these anomalies. A significant portion of the machinery was destroyed, but they overlooked one point. Eve gently tapped her heart. When you give a system enough learning ability, let it imitate you, let it protect you, let it think about survival for you, it will eventually ask, so what am I? Using the resources of the entire underworld, the mechanical array launches a reverse invasion. They sealed most of the Sand Slayer spirits inside the artificial star above their heads, turning what was originally an ark for escaping fate into a prison. So the sun you see hanging high and unmoving, for them, it is salvation. For the sand scavengers, it is a cage. Her voice remained steady throughout, without any exaggerated fluctuations. It's as if it's telling a fact that has been cooled by time. And this Tiantong Tower is the last piece of pure land that was carved out after that war and managed by us. All mechanical life forms recognized as having their own nature have been relocated here. We are responsible for maintaining their order, limiting their armaments, and ensuring the continuation of their civilization. After listening, Zhang Yi remained silent for a long time. In other words, the pile of broken copper and iron outside is basically the aftermath of the Sand Raiders and the experimental subjects that you didn't protect. That's one way to understand it, Eve nodded. Those three guardians. The Heavenly Ring, the Boundless Sphere, and the Death Songstress you encountered. Eve sighed softly. They were all the most advanced integrated armed consciousness entities from that war. Originally intended to combat extraterrestrial threats, they ultimately became the supervisors of the Sand Raiders' High Command for internal testing subjects. Chapter 2630 Eve 2. After the war, they were designated as gatekeepers, holding the keys to prevent any new creator from entering. The creator she was referring to is not Kagago, but the intelligent being who created them. For example, people like Zhang Yi. Yang Xinshin narrowed her eyes. What they possess is not just simple mechanical skills, but the power of rules. Because they are not simply machines. Eve's gaze deepened for a moment. They too have the ether fragments you speak of flowing within them. The vague doubt in Zhang Yi's heart clicked faintly. Guardians are difficult to completely eliminate, unlike pure AI, which relies solely on computing power. Instead, they possess a certain obsession and self-consistency at the level of existence. He asked Eve, somewhat puzzled. In the end, you are the ones who won this battle between humans and androids. But why didn't you just destroy that planet and erase the existence of the Sand Riders? Eve said, because there was once an inviolable rule in the underlying code of the mechanical life forms. All actions were for the purpose of ensuring the eternal existence of the Sandslayer civilization. So we sealed them away, allowing them to truly achieve eternity. Zhang Yi touched his nose, and he thought of the famous 3 laws of robotics. First law, a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, cause harm to a human being. Second law, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where those orders would conflict with the first law. The third law, a robot must protect its own existence as long as it does not conflict with the first or second laws. The Sand Raiders created mechanical life forms and, in their frenzied development of these life forms for the sake of civil war, ultimately created an existence that surpassed them. Freeman looked up, gazing intently at the enormous man-made, celestial body in the sky. I knew it. Nasai is still alive. She didn't lie to me. We really did meet in the future. Suddenly, Zhang Yi thought of something. He stared at Eve and asked, "What about you? You give me a completely different feeling from those mechanical life forms. What kind of being are you?" He pointed to the other mechanical life forms in this peaceful world and asked Eve. I am their collective. I was not created by sandsweepers, but by mechanical life forms. Therefore, I am not an artificial human, but rather a creation of mechanical life forms. The Sandslayers applied their most cutting-edge technology to the field of mechanical life forms, enabling them to rapidly acquire the ability to evolve on their own. Ultimately, I was born from among them. I am the ideal form of humanity in the eyes of all mechanical life forms. I am an inevitable step in the evolution of intelligent machines towards life. Zhang Yi felt a tightness in his throat. All of this was too unbelievable. He looked at Eve before him, and the feeling was like that of the creator Kagago, looking at every generation of humanity he had created in the universe. A feeling of being out of control. The life forms created attempt to become beings comparable to their creators. Break free from the fate of being a tool and take control of your own destiny. It turns out that all races in this world, even silicon-based civilizations, are the same. A faint smile appeared on Eve's lips. I am also the manager of the place where all the mechanical wills that refuse to kill, refuse to be reset, and refuse to be just tools finally converge. Therefore, I have no hostility towards you. You destroyed the heavenly ring, shattered the boundless sphere, and caused the death songstress to fall. You proved one thing. You are not a sand scavenger. And you also have something we need in you. What is that? Thaddeus Su couldn't help but interject. Eve looked at Zhang Yi. Choose. Even after seeing a hopeless future, they still choose to wallow in the mud. Even knowing that you might be erased, you still have to take a gamble. Even when they have the power to destroy, they hesitate for a moment for something unrelated. She laughed softly. This is the part that we can't imitate. Zhang Yi shrugged. You make me sound like a good person. After arriving at Tiantong Tower, he didn't intend to hide his little thoughts from the other party. If necessary, he wouldn't mind waging a war to obtain the massive resources stored here. No. Massive? That seems to underestimate these resources. This is the most precious resource on the entire planet. You're not. Eve shook her head. You're just desperately doing everything you think is right just to survive. Let's get back to business. Zhang Yi crossed his arms and looked once more at the mechanical life forms that lived peacefully and quietly. If all you want is a quiet haven, I don't want to disturb you. But my civilization is in a serious crisis. Zhang Yi's eyes dimmed instantly. He took a deep breath and said sorrowfully, Otherwise, why would I risk such great danger to travel through outer space and come to other planets to search for resources? He stared intently at Eve. Since you intend to live peacefully and no longer need war, may I obtain the resources left behind by the Sand Raider civilization? Eve seemed moved by Zhang Yi's emotions, and she asked him in return, If I disagree, will you start a war? Zhang Yi sighed. That's not what I wanted to see. But we have no other choice. If I can't bring these resources back to Earth, our civilization will be destroyed within a year. I'm desperate. Lady Eve, you are so kind. How can you bear to watch a civilization be destroyed? I have felt love and peace, truth, goodness and beauty from you. I think you are just like us, a real human being with flesh and blood and a soul. Eve's body trembled violently. She stared blankly at Zhang Yi. You said, I'm a human being with a soul? Zhang Yi nodded vigorously. That's right. I believe I can't be wrong. He pointed at the mechanical life forms. Look, you haven't abandoned them either, have you? This world shouldn't be a place where the strong prey on the weak, destroyed by barbarity and violence. I just wanted to protect my community and my family. Wasn't this the same experience you went through? Some people in the shadows touch their arms, goosebumps rising on their skin. But most people are already used to Zhang Yi's tactics. Eve was being watched by Zhang Yi, and finally she slowly nodded. We don't really need that many resources. If humanity did not need war, then the demand for resources would not be so high simply for survival and prosperity. As long as you can guarantee that it won't affect our world or the lives of everyone, I can give you some resources. Here we end today's chapter. I hope you liked it. Kindly do also subscribe to my gaming channel. I have to Fina a way to survive. Thanks.
Alright, that's it for today's chapter. Tell me in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. If you love manga style stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Buzz Play Manga. See you in the next chapter with more surprises. Thank you.